In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, me and my brother James, we are going to cover the top prospects in the West region. We're also going to talk about some of the most intriguing matchups or the best matchups in the first round out west. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I am your host, Rafael Barlowe, along with my brother James Barlowe. And before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that it is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today, use the code Locked On NBA, and you get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And if you are not subscribed to the Locked On NBA Big Boy YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode. I'm a little biased. I think we are your daily source, or the best daily source for NBA draft content. And also check out the Locked On newsletter. It is a newsletter delivered right to your inbox every single day, covering your favorite NBA team. Check it out at lockedondaily.com. All right, let's get right into this episode. We're going to do episodes, 4 different ones. We're going to cover the 4 regions. James is up to bat first. He is going to cover the West. The West has Florida as the number 1 seed, which is a team that, I think a lot of people are thinking that Florida could be the favorite to win the national championship. Who is the prospects on Florida, the number 1 seed out west? They have a game against Norfolk State. That should be an easy win. But who is the prospect on Florida that you think has the best NBA potential? It could be the first pick off the board, because this is not a team that, I'll just say this, college basketball is different. When you look at the number 1 seeds, whether it's Duke, Florida, Houston, and Auburn, you can say that only one team is guaranteed to have a first-round pick, and that is Duke.
You don't think Alex Condon is guaranteed to be a first-round pick?
When you think about some of those other teams, you think about when UConn had Ben Gordon.
Yeah.
You think about the Duke teams and the Kentucky teams and Syracuse. Like, outside of this Duke team, Johni Broome could be a first-round pick, possibly. Condon is trending in that direction. I don't think Houston's going to have a first-round pick. So,
yeah, I get what you're saying. But, I guess you would say, back to Florida, I think the guy to watch for Florida is Alex Condon. He's been trending upward for the better part of January, and athletic big. I think he's 6'11", and he will shoot threes. He runs the floor. He's got good hands. He uses both hands around the basket. And he plays with a lot of energy and passion. He's going to be everywhere against Norfolk State. That's just how these things work in these 1 versus 16 matchups. But he's going to be somebody who I think could continue to increase his draft stock with, the further that Florida does get into the tournament, because they have to be the favorites, or at least one of the favorites to win it all. So he's going to play well. Like I said, very good athlete, run, and I think he has a chance to probably play himself into the top 20 with a strong performance, building upon what he's already been doing since the calendar year turn.
Yeah, he's intriguing. He's not their best player. He's not their go-to guy, but he is their best NBA prospect. Leaf, Tulane may disagree with that, but Condon is what teams are looking for in a modern-day big. He's athletic. He's mobile. He can make plays out of DHOs. He's a really good connective passer. And I agree. I think that he is the top prospect on Florida. All right, let's get to this 8-9 matchup. This is one of my favorite matchups of the entire tournament. But the West actually has 2 of my favorite first-round matchups, maybe 3. But you got UConn and you got Oklahoma. Jeremiah Fears. We are a big Jeremiah Fears podcast here. We're big supporters or big fans of Fears' game. He's still somewhat divisive for some people. Not sure why.
I don't know how, but go ahead.
And then you have Liam McNeely. UConn is trying to three-peat. They're trying to win their 3rd consecutive title. If that is possible, doesn't look likely, but anything can happen in the NCAA tournament. They are going to need a massive performance from Liam McNeely. And in my opinion, if UConn goes deep, that means Liam McNeely probably had a phenomenal tournament, and that probably puts him a lock to go inside the top 10. But they have to get past Oklahoma first. Oklahoma's defense or UConn's defense has struggled against point guards. What are your thoughts on this matchup as far as prospects between Jeremiah Fears and Liam McNeely?
Well, like you said, UConn struggles against point guards, and you couldn't ask for a worse matchup than Jeremiah Fears, who's been on a tear. So, I mean, I have Jeremiah Fears over his last 9 games. Again, 9 games that Oklahoma probably needed to get into the tournament because they were struggling. But he's averaging 21, 5, and 5 over his last 9 games. I think the assists are like 5 to 3, which you'll take considering where he was almost like 1-to-1 the majority of the year. But he's going to be hard to keep out of the paint. And guess who's not there? Donovan Clingan's not there anymore. So good luck stopping Jeremiah Fears. And Liam McNeely, he's struggled. I mean, I like Liam sometimes. He plays hard. He plays with energy. Somehow he'll get to the foul line, even though I don't think he's the most mobile guy, but he brings a lot of energy. But he's struggled lately. Ever since that 12-22 game where he had 38 points, he lit up Creighton. 5 for 14, 5 of 12, 2 for 13, 4 for 18 performance in there. He was 6 of 20 in their last loss. He struggled. So he might be somebody that Connecticut needs him to have a really good game just to advance, but he needs really good games to try to he needs to put together a run because he's been up and down throughout the season. And I believe he's shooting 33% from 3. He's supposed to be a shooter, sub 40% at 6'7". It's not looking good for him this season, at least at this point of the season.
I disagree. You know why? Because
disagree what?
That I don't think he needs a strong tournament. I think that NBA scouts are going to look at him and say, all right, the role that he's playing at UConn is nowhere near the role he's going to play in the NBA. That was my concern about UConn coming into this year. I'm like, all right, Alex Caravan, Liam McNeely, both of those guys are guys that are going to be at their best if they're the third or fourth option. But having those guys as your 1 and 2 option or your 2 top dogs, I just don't know where they're going to get easy looks. And Caravan's field goal percentage has dropped because he hasn't had, Stephon Castle or Tristan Newton. He hasn't had those guys to create for him. He struggled a little bit when his name is at the top or near the top of the scouting reports. And with Liam, he has to carry this team for them to win, and no NBA team is going to ask him to carry. So I think he's going to be fine. I think he's a connective tissue. The opposite is, in order for Oklahoma to have a chance, Jeremiah Fears is going to have to carry. I mean, they got Jalen Moore. He's good, but they go as Fears goes.
Yeah, but I mean, on one hand, you can shoot Liam some bail, and again, it's a different sample size, but Khan has been thrust into this role with Cooper out, and he's led them in 2 big games. They won the ACC tournament. So it's I understand. I don't expect Liam to go and get you 20 attempts. That's not him. That's him for UConn. But at the same time, he's still just not shooting the ball well at all. And I do still think he does have some defensive concerns. Ultimately, he's going to have to guard 4s. But even just outside of his personal stock, Connecticut needs him to be really, really good, or it's going to be an early exit for them.
Yeah, no, Connecticut needs him to be good, but let me rephrase this. I think the role that Jeremiah Fears is playing is closer to the role that you would like for him to play in the NBA than the role that Liam is playing, because I just don't see a situation where Liam is going to be the top dog on an NBA team. And I think Fears can be an engine, but that's just because I'm really high on Jeremiah Fears.
I agree with you.
Basketball season is heating up, and there is no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, which is the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, all you have to do is just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for shots you win up to 1,000 times your cash. It is easy to use. It is available in over 30 states. and it lets you mix and match projections across different sports. And Prize Picks makes it simple. You can set your lineup in less than 60 seconds, and you can stay engaged all game long. And when you win, your money hits your account in as little as 15 minutes. So there is no waiting around. And every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25%, giving even more value to your lineup. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've had this ongoing problem. I just really don't have the time. Between work, life, and trying to eat healthier, I am constantly feeling stressed out. I'd go to the grocery store, buy things that I don't need, and then end up with no time to actually cook. And sticking to my health goals, an absolute struggle. But everything changed when I discovered Hungry Root. Honestly, it is a game changer. It is the easiest way to eat healthy without all of the stress. And with Hungry Root, it's like you have your own personal shopper and nutritionist all in one. They take care of your grocery shopping. They recommend meals that fit your taste and your health goals, from everything from anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. And the best part is that every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste good, all delivered straight to your door. It is a huge time saver and can make eating healthy so much simpler. You're going to absolutely love Hungry Root. For a limited time, you get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/lockedonnba. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's hungryroot.com/lockedonnba, LOCKEDONNBA, to get $40 off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. Again, hungryroot.com/lockedonnba. Do not miss out. All right, let's talk about Memphis, Colorado State. This is a very intriguing matchup for me. You got Nique Clifford, who, if it's not Jeremiah Fears, you can make a case and say Nique Clifford is like the hottest player in the country right now. Colorado State absolutely needed to win out the tournament to get in. I had them as a team that was going to miss the tournament maybe just 3 weeks ago, and he just put the team on his back. Colorado State's 12th seed. They're going up against Memphis and P.J. Haggerty. I want to see if they defend each other, because Clifford I think his NBA role is going to be a 3-and-D connector. But Colorado State needs him, so I don't know how much they'll put him on P.J. Haggerty, maybe late in the game. But that's going to be an interesting matchup, because Haggerty is a guy that he's grown on me. He's grown on me. My man had 42 points and didn't make a single three. I don't know when we'll ever see a guard score 42 points and not make a three in today's game. All paint work. It's either a layup, a pull-up, floater, or free throws. But
I wonder how PJ Haggerty can get by at the next level as a 6'3" Jimmy Butler. Because his game is he's quicker. I guess you could say, what's the word? Buzzword. Twitchier than Jimmy Butler, but essentially it's mid-range pull-up, it's drawing fouls, it's crafty and not a lot of threes. And he's played like that since I can remember. I remember watching him play a high school game. They played Richardson. He had like 40, and it was like it looked like the last game he had. He made maybe a couple threes, but he shot about 20 free throws and he didn't miss. But this is going to be a good matchup. I'm going to tune in. I'm rooting for Penny. I think his seat was hot a couple years ago or even last year. And now it's like, he's winning games. And PJ Haggerty, he's a hooper. But I really, really like Nique Clifford. I've had Nique Clifford in the first round all year. Like, he's the kind of role player that I want on my team. Yeah. Like, he can do a little bit of everything. Give me those guys.
Speaking of Haggerty, like, his numbers from his freshman year to sophomore year are almost identical. I mean, from the points per game to the assists, the field goal percentage, the biggest difference is he's shooting like 41% from three. It is on a low volume of attempts, But for some reason, I think that he can find a spot in the NBA as like this microwave scorer off the bench. But it's interesting because, again, he just does not like to shoot threes. And you know that. Every team knows that. I mean, that's the scouting report on him, but he's still able to get to the money. Floater game. He's unique because at one point I'm like, man, he's not a great athlete. But then the more I watch him,
but he is though at the
he's
same
fast.
time.
He's getting to the paint. I mean, he's got the crossover. He's blowing by guys, but he's not finishing above the rim. He just gets to the money and he gets fouled.
He, like I said, I mean, how do you describe Jimmy Butler's game, right? It's just you look up and he had, prime Jimmy Butler. You look up and he had 20 and he's going to pump fake, get fouled. I mean, that's who P.J. Haggerty reminds me. He's a 6'3", minus the defensive side, but 6'3" Jimmy Butler. Like, the mid-range game is money. He's going to get to the foul line. He just knows how to score. And it may not be a bunch of dribbles like you want your shooting guard to do, but you can't deny the results.
Yeah, no. He's going to give you a quick cross.
Yep.
Floater, pull up. I like him. But Nique Clifford is a player that I have as a first-round pick. You just don't see wings that rebound like him. I mean, he's averaging like 10 rebounds per game at the wing. And this run that he's been on at the end of the year has boosted his three-point percentage. He's like at like 40% around that range. He was around 35 for the season, maybe about 3 weeks ago. I mean, he's seen his three-point percentage jump like nearly 4 or 5 points. But I like Clifford again. First-round pick, in my opinion, is the perfect guy for one of these playoff teams that is looking for some wing depth that can come in and play right away, plug-and-play guy, rebounder, passer, defender. So that is a matchup that I will definitely be watching. All right, let's get into Derik Queen. You're a big Derik Queen fan. You got Maryland and Grand Canyon. And we talked about it in the episode a couple of days ago. My man, Tyan Grant Foster. I mean, I'm talking no buzz. I think he needs a big breakout performance. But if Derik Queen looks like the Derik Queen we saw against Michigan, if he can have a couple games like that, I mean, I think that should stamp him as a top 10 pick. I mean, you think he should be there anyway, but we didn't get a chance to really talk about it. Like, that Michigan game, to me, that was his best game of the season. Didn't have a lot of rebounds, but that was the game where I felt like he showed everything that he had on the offensive end.
I've been saying, look, the most skilled offensive player in this draft is Derik Queen. And that's even with the three-point ball being super duper shaky. Like, he can catch the ball at the three-point line and rip through and score. How many bigs can do that in this draft? And again, I think people are overthinking it because he's on the chubby side. He wears a long sleeve tee. But ultimately, like, that doesn't really matter. He's got a ton of game, post game, mid-range game, face-up game. I don't know why he didn't rebound last game, but he can rebound, push the ball off the court. And he's a very, very good playmaker. And, I mean, hey, tired for a fan, but Derik Queen is going to feast on Grand Canyon. And I think he's going to have a big tournament. I think Maryland is a really good team. I think I have them in the Sweet 16. They defend, they rebound, played in a pretty good conference in the Big 40. So I'm all for it. I think Queen is going to eat. And like I said, been saying he's been a top 10 pick this whole time. I just, people want to overthink it because he's not a run and dunk guy. But run and dunk guys don't always work. I get it's translatable, but it doesn't always work.
Yeah, I was just impressed with the nimbleness and the agility he showed in the game. He was sidestepping and just the way that he was able to put the ball on the floor at that size. I honestly, like we've said before, we don't even know if he's chunky or not. Like, yes, he was when he was at Mount Verb, but you look at the legs look skinny. He wears he's not even wearing like a compression t-shirt. He's wearing like a long sleeve
finish line shirt.
He got it at Champs 5 for 20. They're probably 5 for 30 now. The t-shirt is baggy, but I mean, it's gonna be interesting when he's at the combine. Is he gonna wear a shirt? But hey, man, that game against Michigan, to me, like I said, that was his best game. And we're talking about a guy that had a 2020 game to start his career, but that was the best offensive performance I've seen from Queen. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions, and the privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. And the new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate subject to change. The 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. You must keep the funds in the IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost.
The NCAA Tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA Tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Let's talk about JT Toppin. JT Toppin and Texas Tech play UNC Wilmington. What are your thoughts on JT Toppin, and do you think he can do anything in this tournament that could push him into the first round?
I don't know if he can grow.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. I kind of threw a lob for you.
Class, man. I don't know if he can grow, but I'm going to tell you this, man. If you are a betting man, just write him down for 20-9 against UNC Wilmington. It's going to happen. He's going to get you 20-9. I've been seeing things. I got to do my own research, but he's been shooting the ball better. And ultimately, I think if he can just knock down threes, he's going to be an energy guy off the bench at the next level. I just worry about not only him being 6'7", but he's just skinny. And I don't know how he's going to be able to physically defend fives. He ultimately plays like a five. But if he's making threes, and you can't deny his energy. I think Christian Anderson is going to play well for them. But I think the best prospect on that Texas Tech team is JT Toppin.
They have him listed at 6'9", 225.
Man, he's 6'7", 210, man. Don't come after me, the Toppin fan. I know y'all in the DFW area, but regardless of what his measurements are, he's effective. And there's a role for that in the next level. It's just going to be, can he defend the bigger guys, and can he stretch the floor? Because, the energy is going to be there. He's got a good touch around the basket. He's very talented. Like I mentioned, we talked about him last time, like he moved up in a conference and he was the conference player of the year. Like, how often do you see that from a sophomore? Wasn't he young for his age too?
Yeah, I don't know if he was young. I just know that he was like under recruited. He wasn't the guy. We live in Dallas. People, they weren't talking about JT Toppin like that here.
Right.
Yeah, the 3-point shooting is interesting. As a freshman, he showed some strides. He made 34% of his threes, but it wasn't on a heavy volume of attempts. It was actually less than one a game. Everybody that I talked to on the Texas Tech staff told me coming into the year that he was going to be able to shoot threes. And I was kind of torn because I'm like, all right, he showed promise as a shooter from three, but he was a poor foul shooter. Mm-hmm. This year, he got the free throw percentage up from like 56 to 70, but the 3-point shooting is 32%, but he did nearly double his attempts. So I don't think he can grow over the next few weeks, but if there's a world where he makes a couple threes a game, I think he can help his draft stock because the production is there. 18-9 for the season. Right, but even then, the 18 points per game he averaged.
It was like 28 minutes, right?
Yeah, but they don't tell the whole story because he had a stretch. Like, he had a game against Houston where he only played 4 minutes. He had, he just had some time where he was out with injuries, but he had some monster games. He had a 41-point game, like 41-15 against Arizona State. He had 32-12 against Oklahoma State. He had a 30-14 game against Colorado. He's capable of putting up some monster performances, but I think his draft range based off of if he can help it in the NCAA tournament, I think he's going to have to show that he can knock down some jumpers. All right, let's talk about 6 and 11. That is Missouri versus Drake. Drake has the analytics darling of the draft and Bennett Stirtz. He's the computer boys' favorite prospect other than Jace Richardson. What are your thoughts on Bennett Stirtz? And do you think that if he can lead Drake to an upset or he has a strong performance against Missouri, do you think he could be a 2025 NBA draft guy? I've been seeing Ty Jerome as the comparison. And, Ty Jerome is hot right now. And
I got a little bit more Boogie.
Yeah, he's got a little bit more Boogie. I mean, the foot speed may be the same.
Yeah. the hips Boogie, the feet don't move as fast for Ty Jerome. But I have on my bracket, I have Drake winning this game because of Stirtz. And I think a good turnaround will help. And if he does decide to declare, it would make sense because he's having such a great season. I need to revisit his tape, but he's going to have every opportunity to play because, again, it's going to be while Drake, they played who they played, you're playing against an SEC team. And now it's going to be like, okay, he can do that against this SEC team. Then I can definitely see him improving his stock. And then, like, if they win, which I do have them winning that game, you get Drake then. We can assume that they'll play Texas Tech the next round. So then that's another Power 6 team that you play against. And then if he plays well there, then I can see his stock going up.
He had a double-double against the SEC team earlier this year. And 11 against Vanderbilt. But the numbers just pop out. 19 points, 5.7 assists, 4.4 rebounds. And he shot 38% from three and got to the free throw line 5 times per game, 80% from the foul line. But he just doesn't turn the ball over. 5.7 assists to only 2 turnovers. He fits what you're looking for, at least in my opinion. If you're an NBA team and you're looking for a steady playmaker that can score, that can make the right reads and knock down open shots, I mean, he just kind of fits that mold of what you're looking for. Do I think he's a starting point guard in the NBA? No, but I think that he has what I would like in like a table setter that can, again, knock down open shots that's going to come in and take care of the ball. All right, here's a matchup that from a prospect standpoint, it doesn't have the same hype and fanfare that I was expecting it to have coming into the season. But you got Kansas and Arkansas, 7-10 matchup. We talked about it in the reaction show on Sunday. Boogie Fland is coming back. And Boogie Fland, I think he had like 22 points in like the exhibition game when Arkansas beat Kansas earlier in the year. And maybe that game was like a preview of Kansas' season. I mean, they started off this season as the number 1 team in the country. They ended up being a 7th seed. As far as NBA prospects on Kansas, I don't know. I mean, realistically, they may not have anybody drafted this year.
I want to fast forward Kansas season. Let's auto skip the season, man. Let's sim to the end, man, so we can get Darren Peterson out there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's nobody I want to see on Kansas play, right? I like Zeke Mayo. But Arkansas, I mean, you might get Boogie Fland back. I think the best prospect on Arkansas still is a dude, the Arrow.
But he's not playing. I mean, I don't think he's played in like the last 2 or 3 weeks. He may play, but 2 days ago, he was listed as doubtful. Who knows, man? I thought Boogie Fland was out for the year 3 days ago. So
I thought Boogie Fland was out of Arkansas 2 days ago.
I thought he was getting his pre-draft training. Shout out to Boogie Fland staying on campus and working on his game. And more importantly, believing in his teammates. They were 0-5 in the SEC to start the season.
That's a very mature young man.
Yeah.
With some good people behind him. Because we know that some kids would have checked out, some advisors, some OGs would have told him, hey, come back home to New York. Let's work on this game. Let's get ready for the next level. But let me ask you a question, Ralph. You was real high on Zvonimir Ivišić. What's going on with him, man? What's his draft style looking like?
I don't know, man. Sometimes he shows flashes. He had a stretch a couple weeks ago. I was like, all right, that's it. That's what I want to see, man. I don't know, man. I don't want to bash the kid for like rewalking the same path that he was on last year. But he had 2 games back to back.
I told him I'm not following Coach Cal, man. It didn't work at Kentucky. Go on somewhere else, man. Gonna be great,
but this is what I don't get. All right. So at the beginning of the year, like in SEC play, man, he had 8 minutes against, this wasn't even SEC. All right. Michigan, 8 minutes. 8 minutes against Oakland, 9 minutes against Tennessee, 4 minutes against Ole Miss, 6 minutes against Florida, 7 minutes against LSU. Then all of a sudden, he plays 30 minutes and he has 14 and 10 on 6 of 9 shooting. He starts playing major minutes the rest of the way. And then he had 2 games where I'm like, this is why I'm so high on him. He had 27, 3 blocks, 3 steals, 10 of 18 shooting, and a 4-point loss to Alabama. To me, that's like, all right, big game against one of the better teams in the country. A couple of days later, 10 of 13 from the floor. Now, I know LSU wasn't good, but 25 points. And over those 2 games, he was 8 of 14 from 3. And he was blocking shots. So I'm like, hey, man, Cal is going to release the shackles off Ivišić. And then he had a game against Auburn where he was 0 of 10. He had a game against A&M where he only took 5 shots. Then he comes back and has a 6 of 8 game. It's just been like up and down. The last game against Ole Miss, only played 8 minutes, didn't score, had 4 points against South Carolina.
Against South Carolina, the worst team in the conference?
Yeah, and they only won by 4. So, he's been inconsistent. It's just been like hot or cold. Like the flashes have been there, or like I said, I'm like, yeah, man, this is why I was high on him. And then there's times I'm like, dang, man, do you go back to school? Do you transfer? Like, who knows?
You know what I call that, right? Permanent potential.
But I think with his ability to shoot and block shots, he may not be a good defender, but he's a decent shot blocker, if that makes sense. I don't think he's a first-round pick. But
you got to test because you're 7 feet and you can shoot and you can block shots. You got to test.
He is the guy that I would be worried about because he's probably going to look phenomenal in workouts.
You going to trick somebody?
I still believe in the talent, so I don't know if he's going to trick somebody, but he possibly could. All right, let's talk about St. John's and Omaha. We are from Omaha, but I have a hard time saying Omaha. It will forever be known as UNO, University of Nebraska at Omaha. But they have a matchup against St. John's. RJ Luis is a guy that, he's been good for St. John's this year. Doesn't have a lot of NBA buzz. I know we haven't talked about him a lot, but what are your thoughts on him? And I love Kadary Richmond. I was a big fan of him when he was at Seton Hall, but I just was like, man, he has too many games where he takes 4 shots.
He can hoop. He's going to be a good EuroLeague player. But my favorite player,
you know what? Real quick though, he might be an NBA player because the role that he's like playing in college is probably the role that maybe he could play in the NBA. Because I wanted him to be a star. I wanted him to be that guy that's putting up 15 to 17 shots a game. But maybe the role that he's playing where he's just a steady contributor, maybe some team likes it. But I love the talent. But
I agree. But my favorite player on St. John's is Zuby Ejiofor. He's a local kid, Dallas local kid. That dude's motor is legit. He's athlete. He's a little bit undersized for the center at the next level, but he will attempt to stretch the floor. But he is hard to handle, and he's one of the reasons, many reasons why St. John's is very good. I think he has a lot of talent. I think he has a chance eventually, if not being drafted, not this year or next year, but two-way something. I think he's gonna step foot in the NBA. How long depends on if he's able to consistently make shots. But you want to talk about running and dunking, he can do that for sure. And that's not even with playing with high level point guard play at St. John's. You imagine you pair him at the next level where he has space. I'm telling you, man, he's a running guy and I think he's a pretty good passer too. So I like Zuby a lot.
Yep. Luis is a guy that, I think he's a legitimate NBA prospect, 6'7", 215, average 18.7 rebounds. The big concern with him is we know he can score, we know he can get buckets, but he's just a 32% shooter from three, which is up from the 20% that he shot at St. John's last year. But he shot 35% as a freshman at UMass. But he's a player that could really boost his draft stock if he has a strong NCAA tournament.
I got St. John's going far. I'm buying them just as a team.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. Stay tuned because we have previews coming up from the South, from the East, and from the Midwest regions. Once again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. We are out of here.